Here, I've set up the Panasonic LZ2000 beside a Sony BVM HX310 mastering monitor with a list price of more than £30,000. Now, let me be very clear that no consumer TV will be able to provide a perfect match in every scene to a dual LCD broadcast monitor costing 5 figures, due to differences in quality control, and also the fact that the Sony HX310 is capable of 1000 nits full screen without any ABR restriction whatsoever. To the credit of the Panasonic LZ2000, however, it acquitted itself well in many scenes during this side-by-side comparison, even out of the box in its most accurate picture presets, although obviously professional calibration improved matters somewhat, as evidenced by this color checker SG chart where 140 patches were measured. Using an SDR 1080p Blu-ray of Skyfall, we checked skin tones in this sequence from the National Gallery in London, and shadow detail in a later chapter, and were happy with what we saw on the calibrated Panasonic LZ2000 versus the Sony HX310 as reference. For HDR, peak brightness measured 1000 nits on a 10% window after calibration to D65 white point and 170 nits full fill. The LZ2000 managed to resolve the bright detail on the curtains in this sequence from the darkest hour, providing a respectable match to the Sony HX310 mastering monitor whose 1000 nit full screen advantage cannot be overstated. Otherwise, like all Panasonic OLED televisions, the LZ2000 adapted its HDR10 tone curve according to Max CIL metadata, which is effective in preserving specular highlight detail in 4000 nit content without sacrificing overall brightness too much. Thanks to the use of the latest OLED.EX panel from LG Display, not to mention the implementation of a heat dissipation layer, the LZ2000 is blessed with a more relaxed ABL or automatic brightness limiter circuitry than last year's JZ2000, outperforming even the LG G2 and the Sony A95K up to 50% window size. As a result, HDR presentation was among the most impactful we've witnessed from a consumer OLED television, although naturally QD-OLED TVs such as the Samsung S95B still have the upper hand in rendering brightly saturated colors. Emboldened by the resilient OLED.EX panel and heatsink, Panasonic seemed to also have done away with overly aggressive auto-dimming on the LZ2000, as tested using this looping HDR footage with no significant APL changes, so prolonged dark scenes in HDR10 and Dolby Vision content won't gradually dim down over time to the point of shadow detail being crushed. The dynamic HDR effect setting worked well to selectively boost the luminance of certain HDR elements without affecting the overall APL or average picture level, but please note that it could also exaggerate posterization within the brightened element, so purists may prefer to leave this setting off. The Panasonic LZ2000 provides the most comprehensive multi-HDR format support on the market, including for HDR10+ adaptive and Dolby Vision IQ. The Dolby Vision IQ mode on the LZ2000 continues to feature undefeatable sharpening, noise reduction, and even motion interpolation with no way of switching off this picture processing using the grayed out menu settings, which will reduce its appeal to video enthusiasts who dislikes superfluous video processing. Because the Panasonic LZ2000 uses the same MediaTek MT5816 SoC as last year's JZ2000 OLED, most of the shortcomings have unfortunately been carried over. 1. Native 10-bit gradation wasn't as smooth as we would expect it to be, with the skies in The Martian, and also in this scene from Kingsman manifesting more posterization than rival OLED models from A brands. This is not helped by the fact that Panasonic continues to not offer a user-adjustable smooth gradation decontouring filter in its picture menu, unlike what's found on LG and Sony televisions. Near black gradation in HDR mode was affected too, with this moving quantization test pattern developed by Stacy Spears of Spears and Mansell fame looking stair-stepped, although with decent suppression of flashing artifacts. If we put up some static quantization test patterns on the Panasonic LZ2000, you can see that the SDR pattern resolved fine, but the HDR version was presented in a noticeably blockier and coarser manner, due to limitations of the MediaTek MT5816 chipset without the help of a co-processor. Fortunately, Thanks to accurate near-black luminance tracking and the highly granular calibration controls provided by Panasonic, dark scenes matched up fairly well to what's presented on the Sony HX310 reference mastering monitor, even though some chrominance overshoot remained unavoidable in a handful of challenging scenes due to the presence of white subpixels in the WRGB OLED panel. Upscaling was decent, with Panasonic opting against applying even the slightest amount of edge enhancement once all the sharpening settings are disabled, contributing to a more analog-like, cinematic look. Bright uniformity was good on our Panasonic LZ2000 review unit, exhibiting no bending or dirty screen effect on full-field gray slides, although the left side of the screen appeared marginally cooler than the right. 2022 WRGB OLED panels are generally free from faint horizontal lines on very bright elements or what we call the Venetian blind effect, and the Panasonic LZ2000 was no exception. That uniformity was par for the course for a 65-inch WRGB OLED panel, with some vertical streaks and mild vignetting visible on gray slides just above black. Even with intelligent frame creation or IFC disabled, the Panasonic LZ2000 correctly performed 5:5 pull-down to present slow panning shots in 24 frames per second movies accurately without telesonic judder. Note that there's a new accurate IFC setting which is integral to 5:5 pull-down. If you turn it off, you'll start seeing telesonic judder in 24p films, so just leave it at its default setting of on. Now, if you are sensitive to the mild stutter inherent in 24p movies, which is made more obvious by OLED's near-instantaneous pixel response time, you can engage Intelligent Frame Creation or IFC to smooth out the 24p stutter. However, we found that even the least aggressive IFC setting of min would struggle with certain 24p scenes containing smoke or fog, resulting in visible frame skipping. A better workaround would be to set Intelligent Frame Creation to custom, then gently increase film smooth to the minimum active value of 1, which would minimize the amount of frame skipping in smoky or foggy scenes. By now, those among you who follow the TV scene closely will know that no 2022 OLED television, including the Panasonic LZ2000, offers 120Hz black frame insertion or BFI. Besides dimming the screen and introducing tiresome flicker, for some reason, the 60Hz black frame insertion setting on the LZ2000 also did not improve motion resolution to any discernible degree, so we recommend keeping it switched off at all times. For gaming, the lowest input lag can be obtained by setting input lag to fast within an accurate picture preset such as Filmmaker mode, allowing you to enjoy both low latency and accurate colors without requiring further calibration. Talking of which, I would like to tell you about the pre-calibration service offered by UK electrical retailer Crupton & Moore, who have kindly sponsored this video. I have personally trained their calibrator David Connor to my own high standards. For an extra fee, he will run in a television you buy from them, calibrate it and deliver it to you after having the calibration approved by me. We've been doing this for more than a year, and customer feedback has been excellent. So please give Crupton & Moore a call if you wish to buy a pre-calibrated television, or even any new TV at a competitive price with excellent customer service. Thanks again for your support. Anyway, with input lag set to fast on the Panasonic LZ2000, lag time measured 14.3 milliseconds at 60 frames per second, which can be lowered even more to 9.3 milliseconds once you engage 60Hz refresh rate, which essentially performs frame doubling to 120 FPS, similar to the boost mode first introduced by LG Electronics on its 2021 OLEDs. With a true 120 FPS video signal, input lag measured a super responsive 5.7 milliseconds, which is close enough to the class-leading latency figures on LG and Samsung OLEDs. Due to the MediaTek HDMI 2.1 SoC used, only 2 out of 4 HDMI ports are HDMI 2.1 with 40 gigabits per second bandwidth according to the edit, of which one is the eARC port. Also, just like all 2022 TVs with a similar MediaTek chipset, 4K 120Hz resolution and Dolby Vision are mutually exclusive, so if you would like to play games in Dolby Vision from the Xbox Series X, you are capped to 4K 60Hz resolution. The Panasonic LZ2000 doesn't officially support HDIG, but the TV allows users to force a hard clip through the HDR tone map clipping setting, after which you can set maximum tone map luminance or max TML, as well as maximum full frame tone map luminance or max FFTML on the Xbox Series X or the Sony PS5 to the panel peak of 1000 nits. There is one caveat though. If you engage the 4K 120Hz bypass mode, which not only restores full 4K 120Hz resolution, but also extracts smoother gradation from the MediaTek HDMI 2.1 chipset, you won't be able to turn off HDR tone map, thus preventing you from simulating HDRG on the Panasonic LZ2000. In practice, because game consoles don't output metadata when playing HDR games, the resultant tone mapping on the LZ2000 would blow out some bright highlight detail in HDRG-compliant HDR games, so some gamers may prefer to disable 4K 120Hz bypass mode to be able to take advantage of HDRG. Otherwise, the Panasonic LZ2000 reproduced full 444 chroma with 4K 120Hz bypass mode enabled. VRR worked well, including up to 120Hz with the PS5, and there's a new NVIDIA Auto Game Mode to help boost compatibility with NVIDIA G-Sync. Although just like all OLED TVs we've tested so far, the LZ2000 couldn't avoid exhibiting VRR flicker in certain games, especially during more sedate scenes and on static menus. All Panasonic 2022 OLEDs, including the LZ2000, offer a game control board overlay which displays various gaming-related parameters, such as picture mode, VRR frame rates, 4K 120Hz bypass mode, and HDR tone map settings. To make Game Control Board easier to access, you can assign it to the My App button on your remote control, or pin it to the Home taskbar so that it's immediately available after pressing the Home button on the remote. Comprising front firing, side firing, and up firing speakers tuned by Technics, the 360-degree Soundscape Pro audio system on the Panasonic LZ2000 delivered the most enveloping Dolby Atmos bubble we have heard from any 2022 television on the market. With impressive bass and directionality, it's best to keep the volume well below 50 though. On our review sample, doing otherwise would make voices sound overly strained and shrill, as well as the bass slightly boomy. Let's sum up. The Panasonic LZ2000 is one of the best TVs you can buy in 2022, delivering class-leading out-of-the-box color accuracy, superb shadow detailing, some of the most impactful HDR from an OLED TV, the widest compatibility with various HDR formats, supremely low input lag, as well as the most convincing Atmos bubble from a 2022 television, and so it receives our highly recommended award. Limitations of the onboard MediaTek MT5816 chipset meant that native 10-bit gradation wasn't as smooth as other OLEDs from A brands, and Panasonic still doesn't provide a user-adjustable smooth gradation decontouring filter to mitigate this issue. As far as we are concerned though, the biggest reason for anyone to buy a Panasonic OLED such as the LZ2000 is for its outstanding color and near black luminance accuracy. Even out of the box, our review sample came reasonably close to matching a £30,000 mastering monitor. However, to enjoy this level of out-of-the-box picture accuracy, there is one hidden setting that you absolutely have to switch off on the TV, as I've demonstrated in this instruction video here.